Welcome to the Heart of Herbs Herbal School podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of herbal medicine and natural healing. I'm your host, Demetria Clark, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this journey of discovery. At Heart of Herbs Herbal School, we're passionate about empowering individuals to harness the power of plants for health and wellness. Through our podcast, we'll dive into topics ranging from herbal materia medicas, clinical herbalism, sharing insights, interviews, tips, and wisdom to inspire and educate our listeners. Hi, this is Demetria Clark from Heart of Herbs Herbal School and the Heart of Herbs Herbal School podcast. I know it's a mouthful, and today we are here with Margie Flint, who I have admired probably since the first time I took a class with you. I think it was like in 2002. So very long time ago. Well, no, it wasn't that long ago. It was just the other day. But and one of the things that I have always really admired about Margie and her work is that it's very unique. It's individual, but I also feel like it's really, really practical. And the work that she does with reading the body and connecting individuals in their health process and their health path with herbalism, I think is really just super important. So I would love to ask you to just take this opportunity really quickly to just let us know how did you get started working as an herbalist, then in practicing herbalist, and then eventually getting into the book, because I really want to share about the book with everyone.
How did I get into it? Well, like most of us, I began by getting sick. And I didn't I didn't really like the options that were offered to me, which were basically impending death. So I thought I didn't like that at all. So I began a quest.
Mm-hmm.
And the short version of that story is I was diagnosed with having a tumor in my pituitary gland and was told I had a year and a half to live. I was 24. Can you
Wow.
imagine?
No, I
Just like
couldn't.
you leave the office spinning.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into the back of a cab and was driven down Star Drive to my apartment where I lived with my first husband, who was, let's say, unkind. So I called my parents and asked if I could come home. And they said, yes, of course. We'll make your favorite meal. Not the reaction I was expecting. And so what I did was I basically changed my life entirely. I um, went back to school. I was studying in Framingham, Massachusetts, and there was an herb conference
Mm-hmm.
locally that was right there. And I was going out with a really handsome guy from a natural food store. So I heard about the conference. It sounded interesting. And it was the first Gaia Herb Symposium.
Wow, for
Yeah.
real?
Yeah, at a little
Wow.
4-H camp, and there were 65 people, including all the chefs and all the teachers. And when I got there, it was like coming home. And when the conference was over, everyone's holding hands and singing, and I basically began sobbing because I didn't want to leave. I
Oh,
I
wow.
had found my place. And who were my teachers? So my first teachers at that conference that I connected with were Rosemary Gladstar and David Winston.
Oh, two of
You
my
know,
favorites.
two incredible teachers with very different viewpoints on how to be and how to do, and beautiful, both of them in their very unique ways. So I just began studying, and that's the way I pursued study from then on. I basically got a new teacher about every 4 years.
Mhm.
I would learn and learn and learn and, hire them to come and teach at my dining room table or go to conferences, whatever it took, and, sit at the knee of the teacher.
Mhm.
And then
Wow.
teacher by teacher by teacher, I would accumulate knowledge. And then from that foundation of teachers, the parts that resonated with me became who I was as a practitioner. So, I would say I'm an integrated practitioner. I do a little Ayurveda, a little Chinese, a little Huna, a little this, a little that, and I'm eclectic.
Hmm. I love that. I always like joke that I'm like the world's unsexiest herbalist because I'm so practical. I'm like, "Ruh, ruh." There's all these people who have like,
Oh, you don't
they,
think practical is sexy?
well, no, to me it's wicked sexy, right? Like to me it's like I'm the mode. I'm just like so practical and stuff. And so when you were talking about David Winston and Rosemary Gladstar, they're both really, really different, but they're both super practical too.
Yeah.
Like, use what works. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Do the, so I've always like admired that about them and about you and your work because I mean, I just, uh, I like things to make sense without too much thought. Like, I just,
Yeah.
so sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll just be like, "Oh, I don't really know like about that." And then I go and look and I'm like, "Oh, of course that makes sense that it would work because this and that." And then it makes sense to me. But I love the fact that you are talking about studying from a variety of
Hmm.
teachers. And
I
then
think that's important.
I think that's one of the most important things, which is, people always think is funny because I've run an herb school since 1998, but I also have always tell my students, "Hey, you need to, you know, study. I am not the only you should not want that
I
at all. Like, no, you need a million different things. So I love that you talk about incorporating all different kinds of modalities and thought processes and systems into your healing focus. I think that's really beautiful. And I don't think we could say that enough. I think that it's interesting that people always feel like they need to be the expert of everything, and I'd rather be the expert of none. like, like, and so I'm going to assume that when you learned all these different ways of working, that you infuse that into your clinical practice working with
yeah.
clients.
Yeah. I mean, my clinical practice, uh, really Rosemary, of course, and David are my first teachers. So they're always going to be a part of me
Hmm.
and not apart from me.
Oh, I love that.
And, Matthew Wood and William Lasassier were the next major influence. And I don't want to leave anyone out. I had many, many wonderful teachers, Cascade Anderson Geller, and
Oh, she was lovely.
it just goes on and on. But um, William, when I studied with William, it was as though the knowledge came in through a funnel on the top of my head and stuck there.
Oh, I love that.
And, you know, I had been exposed to his teachings prior to meeting him. And then I decided I would bring him here to have him teach for me. He had been off the grid for about 10 years.
Hmm.
He was a very eccentric man and lived to excess, as many herbalists do. And so I thought, well, I'll bribe him. I'll have him come and teach, and I'll just hand all the money to him after expenses.
Hmm.
And
Oh, I'm
when I
sorry.
handed
Someone
him
just came in my
paper,
office.
dogs love me. I don't know why. And he, when he received his check, he looked at it and he just said, "What? This is so much money." I said, "I want you to teach."
Hmm.
And it was like, "You have been missed by so many people all these years you haven't been teaching." So I had him come and teach 3 times before he died.
Oh,
And I
wow.
didn't know he was sick. It's so funny. He was teaching diagnosis. Did I see his sickness? No. When we look at our teachers, they're on, this magical realm of, oh, they're so perfect and wonderful. No, we're not. All of us have our stuff. And
Yeah.
he had hepatitis C.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he missed a liver transplant by one day.
Wow.
And but I had him come and teach. I had really horrible. I hired somebody to shoot video,
Hmm.
and they did, but they were so into the class, the camera just didn't move.
Oh my goodness. Oh my, really?
I
That's
know. Oh my God.
crazy. Oh my
But
goodness.
there,
I
it's
love that.
something. It's
That would be
something.
something I would do. I
So
would get so transfixed.
his work really is, I have Rosemary and David and so many other Kate Gilday and many, many other teachers. But William's teaching was the magic of my career.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
I I did not practice alone.
Hmm.
I practiced with the wisdom of my teachers.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think every herbalist needs to acknowledge that. Even the ones we don't like, or even the ones that we're like, that information coming. We learned something so important from that. I think it's really cool that that you phrased it like that. I'm gonna have to borrow that.
You're welcome to it.
Thank you.
And the other thing I really believe in is your clients tend to say, "Oh, you healed blah blah blah." And it's like,
Hmm.
I didn't do anything.
Yeah,
I'm like the crystal ball. I have all
yeah,
the information. I connect to you, and I do believe that we as humans connect spiritually with each other. We're not disconnected from each other. And they're the ones putting the herbs in their mouth and taking them and, making their teas and taking their tinctures and better still making their own medicine, which is what I really believe in. Um, but I don't want credit
hmm,
for what I did not do. I shared information
yeah, yeah,
and I was good at sharing. And I think part of being a good practitioner is understanding how to listen. And for that, I honor Karen Sanders and Sarah for their teachings at Blue Water School.
hmm,
I'm not sure they're teaching anymore. Anyway, they did a lot of work teaching us how to have healthy boundaries, how to sit and be empty and listen to somebody as they tell their story. In the old days when I was a young herbalist, if somebody started crying, I'd scoop them up in my lap. My nickname has always been Earth Mama.
hmm.
It's like, oh, now I don't do that. You let people have their feeling. If you cross that boundary, they aren't able to do their own growth and their own realization.
Absolutely. I agree
It
with that.
is such a valuable lesson. And so many people feel like, oh, but you know, I'm empathetic and I want to be loving and kind. Well, I am loving and kind, but they're their tears. They have to have their own heart revelations and understand where things build up in their body. One of the other great teachers I had was actually a medical doctor. He was the first integrative medicine guy in our neighborhood,
Hmm.
Alex Angelov. And he taught me how to use the timeline. Do you use a timeline?
I don't know if you
Oh,
define it the same way. So
okay.
why don't you
Okay.
let me in on what you're thinking and
Okay.
then
All right. It's like after the consultation, it's the only paper I ever look at.
okay.
So, single piece of paper,
Hmm.
line down the middle. Some people use computers, but I'm not
Hmm.
that typey. Um, and I'll have, if they're 50, I'll have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 on one side of the line. and then the year that corresponds opposite. Like if they're born in 1950, it'd be 10 years old, 1960, because
Mm,
people remember things in different ways.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they might remember an event when they were 10 or when it was the year. And that way you don't have to keep doing math in your head. Herbalists, I think, are kind of notoriously not great at math. Uh,
Yeah, my family jokes I can only do math if there's a dollar sign in front of it.
well, is that inspiration? So the timeline, I put everything on there, like, um, uh, what was your birth like?
Ah, okay, okay.
What were the first thoughts your parents said to you? You know, oh, I
Mm,
wish I had a boy, whatever it is. So, and you
yeah,
realize, oh my God, that really impacted me all my life. Where you lived, what the atmosphere at home was, all the drama and trauma, car accidents, falling out of trees, um, deaths, divorces, births,
hmm.
miscarriages, abortions, all of that is what I consider to be the pertinent information.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I do something that's more like a kind of like a, I don't know, like a mind map almost. Like it's similar, but it's like what was, what was going on in your life at this time period or similar kind of basically the same kind of thing but a different kind of name and my stuff is always I always like I doodle
Oh,
and everything is like round and
I like that.
doodly and stuff like that and I'll have like little illustrations of my thoughts. Well, I don't know. I'm a
I
goofball,
love that.
but
I
I
love that.
definitely I like the way that you do that though, because I do like linear approaches and lists and stuff like that on the other side. So I think that's really cool. And I love the way you describe that.
Huh. On the round theme, now that I've been distracted, one of the things I learned from him that I've never ever forgotten is there is no comma between body, mind, spirit. It's a circle.
Oh, I think I remember him saying something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
well, I mean, it's kind of true, right? I mean, this whole everything is separate, I think is what really keeps us stumbling in a lot of ways,
Absolutely.
especially with little, if we could start little kids thinking, from the beginning, you're whole and this is, different ways we do things. I think that would be really helpful because by the
And
time you're grown up, damage has been
same
done.
theme. Words are powerful.
Yes,
Yeah, I
exactly.
remember when my daughter was about 9, she had two little friends over standing around the island chit-chatting, and I was in the other room and I heard them talking about another little girl, not very nicely. And I went into the room and I said, okay, I'm just going to repeat what I just heard, but I want you to imagine that these words are about you. And I repeated it, a little bit of it. And I said, okay, is this the way you want people to talk about you? And do you want to be thought of as somebody who talks this way? And I just walked out of the room.
That's heavy. That's a mom moment, right? Like anybody who's a mama knows that kind of moment, right? Oh, wow. Yeah, we forget how important language is. I think nowadays we're so uh, I what was it I was saying the other day? It feels like we are so fast to show our anger and our angst
Hmm.
and to let the whole world know that we have it, that instead of just like holding back and letting the situation finish before we go on our rampage and I think we do that with our bodies too, because I feel like sometimes there's an all or one solution. There's everyone is out there being like, do this and everything's going to be fine. And as your book has displayed over the years, that it's more than that. So, can you tell us about your very, very beautiful manual on being a practicing herbalist? Because that book,
Is
I mean,
heavy.
seriously, that book is like, how many pages is it now?
I think it's
It
like
looks like what, five?
550. And then it goes on the index, lots of pages.
This book has so much information. So, what is the exact title so everyone can get their hands on it? The Heart of Herbs Herbal School Podcast.
The Practicing Herbalist.
All right.
This is the 4th edition, and you can get it on my website. I don't know if you put that up.
Yeah, I will, but let's say it out loud so it'll be in the transcript.
It's Earth Song Herbals, and you can buy it on the website. And, some people like to have it inscribed. If you're in Virginia, I will be there. But if you want it inscribed, you have to order it through me personally. And then that's Margie Flint, 117, my lucky numbers, at gmail.com.
Okay, cool.
And that way I'll inscribe it and ship it to you.
Oh, awesome. And we like to encourage all of our listeners to go directly to the source when ordering something, because that is how you know
I don't really
exactly where it's coming from.
Except in Europe, I don't really have another dealer,
Okay.
Yeah, I just chose not to do that because I wanted to make all the money myself.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Oh, look at that. I love that. It's so well illustrated. I just remember the first time I got it. I think it was from you at like a conference or something. And I just remember just sitting and just going through. I was like, this is invaluable. And that's why it's on our book list as suggested books for our clinical students, because there's just so much information. What inspired you to put this all together?
Oh, what a perfect segue. My lover at the time, beautiful young Bill, he said, I was working on the book. It took 9 years to write it.
Wow.
And he said, well, you should begin it with your own story of how you became an herbalist. And that way people will understand that no matter who they are, they can be an herbalist. There isn't any one right background to be an herbalist. You can have many backgrounds, which I thought was really funny. And it is a great part of the book. It's quite blatantly honest about, who I am and, marriages and all that. I'm not great at everything. It's so human. So anyway, there's that. But I wanted to teach people how to set up a practice because when I was young, we didn't have like business courses for herbalists and, how to set up QuickBooks and how to use a computer, for goodness sake. I mean,
oh no, I know.
I've
My
gone
first
from
website I
writing
had
all
to do
my
myself.
yeah. I mean, I used to do all my accounting on a ledger, the old-fashioned way, and had to learn how to use a computer and do all that stuff. And, people laugh and say, oh my God, you're 74, you're better at the computer than I am. And I'm like, right on. But it's a necessary part of your practice,
It is.
and inventory and all that sort of thing. So the book covers very practical concepts of how to run a small business, how to do an intake, why you ask the questions you ask, and what are the 10 questions that might follow the answer to that question. Little vignettes of stories of client stuff in between. So we have the intake, and then I have, every practice has certain issues that come up again and again. So my practice was heavily cancer ridden.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I had a lot on cancer, and I had my revered teachers, David Winston and Wendy Fogg. Oh no, she was in the Lyme chapter. So Lyme, cancer, autoimmune disease, sort of the things that were most common in my practice I would write about. And in this edition, I have a little bit of mummy pride with my son Gabriel is a really fabulous chef and restaurant owner in Hawaii. And he asked me if I would come and teach him how to make bitters. So we had a
Oh,
great time making bitters. And at the end, I said, okay, so we'll shake them and pray. We'll put them on a shelf for 2 weeks. He goes, no, Mom, they'll be done in 4 hours. I said, what? So this is a sous vide. You can have your tinctures done in 4 hours. You can spend your time praying for those 4 hours if you want, but the taste will be much more true to the plant. And I was like, holy moly, from my baby, my
it's
little
so cool.
boy, my little 42-year-old baby.
I love that. I love that I love that herbalism is one of those professions that requires you to keep learning and to be flexible because technology changes.
Yeah.
And if you don't stay with the technology on some level, you could be missing out on something really fabulous. Like I really resisted all of the infusion machines, like the magic butter and all that. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna really do that. That's not my thing. And then I was like, well, my students are wanting to know more about it. I need to learn more about it. And even though it's still not my favorite thing, it's a good thing that I know how to use it and I know what it does and how it works and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's cool that you're getting to learn and experience this growth with your son, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah.
I
And
can't wait for my boys to have a question.
when you have students, you will learn from your students too. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
absolutely. I
I
mean,
hope so.
I don't ever want to think I know everything.
Mm.
The
I'm
more I
really,
more I know, the more I feel like, oh my God, I have so much to learn.
I always tell my students that I think that with the wellness industry, right? It's very easy for the disciple mentality to,
Yes.
present itself and that teachers can fall into that trap.
Oh
And
yeah.
that you've got to be
Being
really
on a
careful
pedestal.
that you don't take
Mhm.
advantage of that relationship with your clients who are
Mhm.
like, you helped me have a baby. No, I didn't help you have a baby. I suggested some herbs. You ended up getting pregnant. We're working together, but that baby's not mine. Like, I have
I
no
don't know. Let's
responsibility for
see.
that.
I do think I had baby magic, and I might actually believe that if I rub against someone, they'll get pregnant.
I love that. Well, when you were talking about coming into contact with different things, I just like for about 5 years, I felt like almost every single person that came into my practice was trying to get pregnant. And I was just like,
It's
I would,
always that way.
and then it would be something else. So autoimmune disorders or skin
Mhm.
issue. And you're just kind of like, and I tell students that's normal.
Yeah, it is.
Like I also train birth workers, and I'm like, look, just because you have three C-sections in a row or three this in a row doesn't mean this is all you're ever going to see. Life just happens sometimes like that. But and so I love that you touched on that because it is true in herbal practice that sometimes you become the person known for whatever for a little while, and you're like, I didn't ask for this.
Yep. But it is, I really think it is the universe, the intelligence of all that gives you those cases again and again and again so that you get really good at it.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. That's a really beautiful way to put it. I feel like um I feel like the industry is one that is so complex and gorgeous and interesting. And I really want to keep looking at it that way instead of everything being distilled down to one or two things, like you can only use this herb for this. And I'm like, no, okay,
Uh, you
let's
know,
break that mentality here.
years and years ago, Brooke Medicine Eagle said, be careful, the planet is changing. And when the planet changes, the uses of the plants change.
Oh, yeah, of course. What a beautiful statement. But that makes so much sense.
Yes, stay awake.
Because I mean, even flowers will do things in that season to attract what they need just for
Mhm.
that moment, right? So
Yeah.
why wouldn't plant kingdoms also, you know, change and evolve like we do as human beings? Very cool statement. So you're teaching in West Virginia,
Yep.
correct?
And
And
tonic.
where else are you going to be this year if people want to check you out?
I'll be teaching in Arkansas. Uh,
Mhm.
boy, I would have to look on my own website to tell you where.
But it's all there. All
It's
the
all
info's
in
there,
my
right?
website.
Okay,
And
cool.
then I have the legacy training course.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to train, I am training teachers, I have been for years now, to carry on the tradition of the Lasassier diagnostics, the face, tongue, and nail diagnostics that
Hmm.
William teaches, which is the foundation of the book as well.
Hmm.
Because I've had enough near death experiences in the last few years to realize I better get this done.
Oh, yeah,
So
right.
I'm teaching every other month here in my own home, and I have 5 bedrooms. So there's, possibilities for people to stay here and training them to be teachers. And I would, in an ideal world, have them kind of splattered across the universe so that there's somebody in Canada and somebody in each country and each state
Hmm.
that can teach it, and then, if anyone's interested in that, they can write to me and I'll send them all the requirements and um, what what you get at the end and what you have to do to get there.
All right, that's awesome. That's really awesome. I think that it's cool that you are thinking about things in reference to forever change,
Yeah.
which I think training people to do that kind of work is forever change because then they can train people and it's something that
Yeah.
obviously
This
we've
is
lost,
the
in our modern
the,
world, but we're
the
getting back.
diagnostics in this book
Hmm.
have no time.
Yeah,
It is
it's true. They're
it's
beautiful.
it's good forever.
And it's so well illustrated and it's
Well,
so
Matt Wood and I did that.
detailed. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Matthew Wood and I met in various coffee shops across the country, and we'd sit and I'd say, "Well, I think the lips go this way. Oh, I think they Oh, yeah, I know. It goes this way." And we'd work it out until we had it perfect. And I think line drawings are so much easier to interpret. When you see pictures, I don't know, it's harder to really say this is what we're looking for. But with a line drawing, it's really simple.
I think that's true. And I also think line drawings lend itself to, more than one skin tone. So a lot of
There
dermatology
is,
textbooks are
I'll tell
only
you, you
Caucasian
know,
skin. And it's like, hang on a sec.
there is a fabulous book out,
Yes, I have it. The one with the
Layla O Africa.
dermatology.
No,
Yes.
shoot,
I can't remember the name
here
of
it
it,
is.
but I think you were just saying it. It's the dermatology textbook that's,
No, it's a
oh,
different.
okay.
This one, I always said I should write one for people with dark skin. I don't have to. It's already been written.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I'm gonna
This
have to get
is
that.
an awesome book.
Yeah, well, because it is so different, and we need to acknowledge that and help
Different
people.
in some ways, but not
Yes,
in
yes.
others.
Well,
But
but the way rashes and stuff present can be different.
yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
mean, this book is in sex positions. Hello.
Hello. Bum, 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 no. Who knew we were
And
going to take a turn?
I just can't tell you what a wonderful book this is. So I don't need to write one on dark skinned people because I really don't have the experience. I live in pasty white land.
Yeah,
I
no.
mean, I've had dark skinned clients, but it's, melanin, the tone of skin, the everything can be a little different. The basic lines are the same though.
Yeah, well, that's what I was
Yeah.
loving about what you were saying because it's true. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I've lived in the South for a long time, so I've worked with clients from all over the spectrum of being as pink as me to being very, very dark. And there is a difference, and sometimes just having the line drawing can really make things easier. Or you can say to your client, do you identify with something that you see, and you can show them imagery and they can say, yes, this is what this feels like to me. And I love that. And I love that your books are accessible and easy to use and so detailed.
Well, I think between these two, you got it all.
Well, I will not disagree with you on that. So, how do you feel about the future of herbalism? And then I will probably, we're getting close to the end of our time. I know you have an appointment. So, but how do you feel about the future of herbalism?
Well, herbs are our ancestors. No matter what we do as humans, the herbs will survive. Herbalism, I have great faith in. I believe, first of all, that this is the most exciting job. You will never be bored. Every day is a new adventure. Practical skills will help you survive it and actually make money. But the future of herbalism, I am not concerned about myself. I mean, I stopped seeing clients
Mm-hmm.
and I still get calls every day of somebody wanting to see me. It's very hard to say no, but I really want to have trained, there are plenty of young herbalists who can certainly handle the new clients. And as my daughter, Sarah, who's so wise, said, Mom, you learned how to resolve issues around cancer because you saw one client at a time. Your herbalists will also learn the same way. So,
You have some very wise children over there, let me tell you.
yeah, yeah, I, I do. I'm very grateful for my kids.
That's very awesome. That's definitely, I think, good advice. Sometimes one at a time, one step at a time, one
Yeah.
person at a time, one song at a time is
Do you know who Tori Hudson is?
the name
She's
sounds.
a naturopath in the West Coast. And years ago, she was at the Women's Herbal. So she's a lesbian. She had
Mhm.
on Rosemary Gladstar's very foofy, wafty dress,
Mhm.
which in itself was hysterical. And she got up there and she said, naturopathy is a new medicine. When people call and they say, have you treated Hashimoto's? And you've only seen one client, you can say, in my experience, blah, blah, blah. You've seen two, you can say, time after time. Of course, I would just say, I haven't seen anyone, but I'm willing to try. I'll do the research before you come, and I'll do the best I can.
I love that. I love that. Oh, that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. So I wanted to say thank you for spending
You're
time with us
welcome.
today. I really appreciate it. I was a little nervous because I was just so excited. So hopefully I wasn't too rude and didn't talk over you too much. Um, I've just really enjoyed this. So thank you so much for taking
You are
time out of
so
your day to
welcome.
be with us today. And I'd love to check in with you sometime or if you have a new edition of the book coming out, always let us know or anything like that, and
Okay.
we'll make sure people know how to get it. Because I just think it's an important read and I think everyone needs to read it. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
You have
My,
a great day. Thanks. All right.
I
Bye
will.
bye.
Bye.
Interested in learning more? Visit heartofherbs.com and enroll using coupon code podcast to save 20%. The content provided in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or medical condition. It's always recommended to consult a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or health regime, especially if you have an existing health condition. Any of the financial information and advice for starting or maintaining an herbal business is just that, information. It's not used to be a guideline on how you should run your business. Contact the appropriate professionals to help you to have a successful business.